Hello friends and welcome to our tutorial. Today we'll be talking about kinetic typography. So, kinetic typography is an animation technique that uses moving text to capture attention, set a tone, and entertain. It seems to be everywhere right now. Commercials, music videos, mobile apps, and even websites use it to make their words more impactful and add an element of artistry. Today I'll show you 3 different techniques of kinetic typography. Of course, there's a lot of them, much more of them, but I hope that these 3 could become a good basis for you to understand the style and get around it. All of the techniques are purely After Effects and you won't need any plugins to follow me along. So, let's jump into After Effects and begin to animate. Okay guys, so here we are in After Effects and our first example will be this flying split word. So let's create new composition, 180p, 30 frames per second, 3 seconds long, and I'm gonna call it 001. Now I'm gonna type in my text. I'm using the Biba Snowy typeface. You can use your own. And now I'm gonna center my anchor point and center out my word, the center of the composition. Okay, now I'm gonna create some guides. And I also want to create guides for all the shapes that will connect our split words. Alright, now I'm going to make my text 3D. I'm gonna name this top and duplicate it, and I'm gonna name this bottom. And on the top I'm going to create a mask, and on the bottom I'm going to also create a mask. Now I'm bringing up the position, and the top layer will be shifted 30 frames, 30 pixels forwards, backwards, and the bottom layer will be shifted 30 pixels forwards. So as we can see, we have our words separated, but there is a gap that we need to connect. So I know that the total height of my shape will be 60 pixels since I've shifted my words by 30 pixels forwards and backwards. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm going to create a shape and I'm gonna make it 60 by 60, and I'm going to create 2 more guides. I'm gonna delete this shape. And now I'll start drawing my connectors, if you can say so. Okay, I'm gonna call this connectors. And I'm gonna also make it 3D and rotate it 90 degrees on the X axis. Now let's check if everything is aligned well. As we can see, there's some little gaps still present, so what I want to do, I'm going to shift this word like this, and this one like this, and this one like this, and this one like this. Okay, cool. Now let's create some camera. I'm going to use a custom wide angle camera, and I'm going to create a null object. I'm going to call it transform gonna make it 3D, and I'm gonna parent my text and my connectors to the transform. And now I'm going to set my rotation like this, and also bring up the position. I'm gonna bring up the title action save and see if my word is centered. Yeah, that's pretty fine. I'm going to create some keyframes, and also I want to zoom out. Here I'm going to zoom in, rotate my word like this, and also adjust the position, maybe zoom in a little bit more. Yeah, that's pretty fine. And all I have to do now is to easy use my keyframes. Like this. And maybe the X rotation will be like this. Okay. Okay, cool. So that's it for the first technique, and let's head on to the next one. Alright, so the second example is this cool rotating cylinder made of text, and let's recreate it. So let's create a new comp. I'm gonna call it 002, 180p, 30 frames per second, 3 seconds long. And now let's type in some text. Let's center the anchor point and center out our text. And I think that's not enough. I'm gonna duplicate my text. And now in the effects and presets menu, let's bring up the CC cylinder and apply it to our text. And now, as you can see, we have this cool looking cylinder. Now I want to bring up camera, also with the wide angle, and now I'm going to make some adjustments. First of all, position C 100. First of all, what I want to do, I want to change my light settings. So light height 45, light intensity 250, and light direction 0. Nice, but we need to make a shadow here, so there would be more depth. To do this, we're going to call this outside, duplicate it, and this will call inside. And in the CC cylinder settings, in the render, let's select inside. And now we'll see that only the inside of the cylinder will be rendered. Doesn't matter how I rotate it, doesn't matter how I place it, only the inside will be rendered. And outside will be on top. And here I'm gonna select outside. And now for the outside, I'm going to create a drop shadow, but with layer styles, because when you create a drop shadow with layer styles, no matter how you rotate or how you place your layer, the shadow will always fall according to the light direction. But when you add a drop shadow as an effect, if you will rotate a layer, the shadow will also rotate, so keep this in mind. Okay, so layer styles, drop shadow, and now let's adjust it. I'm gonna bring up the transparency to see what's going on. So angle 90 degrees, size, bigger size, and distance 0. That's pretty fine. And keep in mind that if we want to create some background, and for example it will be a colored background, I don't know, maybe purple like in my example, we need to do one thing: to match the color of the background. It's a good thing if the shadow will match the color of the background. So to do this, let's bring up the tint, apply it to the both of our layers, and let's map black to the color of our background. And I'm gonna do this for the inside as well. And of course it doesn't affect the layer styles, so I'm gonna do this like this, and the blend mode I'll set to normal. Nice. Next thing I want to do, I want to rotate my text, so I'm going to alt click on the rotation Y and enter time times 30. I'm gonna copy this expression and do the same for the outside layer. Or we can just map these properties. So if we make some adjustments, the other layer will follow. Alright. So now if I'm gonna adjust this one will follow as well. Okay, and I want to create an animation for the camera. So I'm going to add a null object, make it 3D, parent my camera to null object, hit P, bring up the position. I'm gonna zoom in, and on the second I'm going to zoom out, and here I'm also going to create a few keyframes on the outside layer. And change X rotation and the Z rotation. And you know what? I'm going to adjust my drop shadow a little bit because I don't like it. Pretty fine. Oh, and one more thing. As we can see, our text is bigger than the comp, so it's getting cut in here. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna change the scale of our text to match the size of our comp. And I'm also going to ease my keyframes. Alright, that's it for this technique, and let's head on to the next one. Alright, so the third example is this kind of a waving, rotating board. So let's create a new comp. 180p, 30 frames per second, 3 seconds long, and I'm going to call it 003. I'm going to type in my text. I'm gonna center my anchor point and center my text. And what I want to do, I want to make a black fill and a white stroke. The width of the stroke will be 1 pixel. Okay, now let's make this work 3D. Let's duplicate it. Let's go to the custom view so we can see better what's going on. And let's position the second layer at 10 pixels backwards. And I'm gonna recolor it. I'm gonna make the fill white. And now what I want to do, I'm just gonna duplicate this and reposition it. And I'm gonna offset each new upper layer by 10 pixels backwards. So you can do as many copies as you want. I'll stick with 8. 8 is enough. Maybe 10. Okay, let's do 10. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the active camera. And now I'm gonna bring up the rotation property of the first layer and keyframe my Z rotation. Make it 15 degrees on the beginning of the timeline and minus 15 on the first second. Now I'm just gonna select my keyframes and copy and paste them. So we're having this kind of a looping animation. Okay, now I need to easy ease my keyframes. No further adjustments, just this kind of a sine motion. And I'm gonna copy the rotation animation and paste it to other layers. And be careful to do this in the beginning of the composition. I'm gonna hit U to bring up all the animated properties. And now I'm just gonna offset all the layers by 1 pixel. I'm gonna select everything, place it in here, so this will be the beginning of our animation, and this will be the end. And if I'm gonna hit render, we'll have this nice rotating loop. Not exactly. Oh, yeah. Alright, cool. So I'm gonna trim my comp to this time. Now I'm gonna create a camera, also with a wide angle. And I'm going to create a null object, make it 3D. I'm going to parent all my text to this null and rotate my null a bit, maybe like this. I'm going to create another null object. I'm going to duplicate this null object, reset the rotation and parent. This will be rotation. And this will be position. And I'm going to adjust my position so the word will be in the center of the comp. And again, if you wish to bring up, to add some background, the simplest way to recolor the text is to create an adjustment layer, add tint to it. Maybe not, maybe not. We'll have to pre-comp this. Maybe even like this. I'm gonna pre-comp this and I'm gonna call this 003 text. I'm gonna select collapse transformations. Alright. And now I'm gonna apply tint to my text. And here we go. Alright guys, so this is it for the third technique. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe, and see you in the next videos.